In today's modern cinema, the art form that was once film seems to have been long gone. Forgotten in the past and now overshadowed by things like the quick reboot of a beloved franchise, CGI, and
modern audiences.
These topics I'll save for another time, but what I want to talk about today is a little show that was short-lived, beautiful, and maybe one of the last greatest examples of what film as an art form should look like.
This is Tugs.
The Unlucky Tug described this show in the best way. The best show you've never heard of. I want to go in depth about the history of the show and also my overall thoughts, and then I will go into each episode individually and give my thoughts on them. So what on earth is Tugs? If you're from the States and you lived in the 80s and early 90s, I would be surprised if you've heard of this show without watching some videos on YouTube. To sum up this show, it's about two fleets of tugs competing for contracts and jobs in a big city port in the 1920s. You have the Star Tugs, led by Captain Star, who are the quote-unquote good guys. Then there is the Zero Fleet, or Z-Stacks, led by Captain Zero, who are the antagonists. I'll save getting into each character until I go over Sunshine, since that's where most of them are introduced. Now, let's get into the history of this show, because the history is wild. After Thomas and Friends wrapped up production on season 2, David Mitton and Robert D. Cardona wanted to branch out and do their own thing. They eventually landed on a show about tugboats, working in a busy port during the 1920s. According to Robert D. Cardona, it was while talking to somebody in San Francisco who owned a tugboat company that the building blocks for the show began to show. God, that line is stupid. Many people who worked on Thomas went over to work on Tugs, including the same people who made the music for Thomas, Michael Donald and Junior Campbell, which I will get into later. Tugs would be filmed in Shepperton Studios, the same as Thomas, and also under the same company of Clearwater Productions. Tugs was originally going to be 13 30-minute long episodes, but it was decided that 30 minutes would be too long for children, because the attention span of a child is very, very short. Sometimes. Not most of the time. So it was shortened to 20 minutes. This was the time every episode was written and filmed, but it was shortened later to 15 minutes, supposedly because they could not get a 20-minute time slot. Tugs ate money. I'll get into why this did a little bit in a couple minutes, but it's pretty obvious. You look at the show, the amount of detail that they put in is ridiculous. The models cost, I think, £8,000 each to make. That's no hefty find. I think there's at least like 10 different tugs on just of the main crew alone, not including any of the off characters. And then the sets are they're huge. And then there's the mechanics for the steam. It's so many things in this show, but it costs, like everything, it costs money. And unfortunately, to make something this beautiful, it had to cost a little money. So to make back some of the money they spent, 4 episodes were released on VHS. These included Sunshine and Pirate, and then Regatta and Munitions. This is why 20-minute versions of these episodes survive, as these were released before the episodes were cut to 15 minutes. After all of this, the show would air on British TV in 1989 and did extremely well. But the show's long-term goal was to get investors in America, and many things in the show were done because of this plan. like the livery of each tugboat fleet. The Star Tug being painted like the San Francisco fleet, and the Zero Tugs being painted like the Moran New York fleet. Even the many sets were designed to look like American ports. However, this never came to be, as obviously you may know. In 1990, Television South, or TVS, the main broadcast station for Tugs, filed for bankruptcy. Clearwater Productions had a huge stake in TVS, which allowed them to finance for Tugs. With the closure of TVS, Tugs had run out of time to find investors in America, and with no money to continue on Tugs, it was over. But the end of Tugs also saw the end of Clearwater Productions, and they closed their doors on New Year's Eve, 1990. Robert D. Cardona would head over to Canada to make another tugboat series most Americans are probably more familiar with, Theodore Tugboat. David Mitton, Michael Donald, and Junior Campbell would return to Thomas, as well as many of the others who had originally come from Thomas to join Tugs, under Britt Allcroft's new company, the Britt Allcroft Company. Not only that, but many of the props from Tugs were also used in Thomas, like the Fulton Ferry. Izzy Gomez was also used as the background shot without the face. Many of the smaller ships and the many ocean liners were also brought in, as well as Big Mickey the Crane, who actually in recent years in the CGI series in Thomas has actually gotten a face, which is kind of okay. Though I can give the crew props for actually calling him Big Mickey, that's pretty cool. The crew that came over to Thomas from Tugs brought much of what they had learned with them, from all the set design, the live water sets, and seasons 3 to 5 are some of the best looking in the entire show because of this. I mean, if you watch the end of season 2 and the beginning of season 3, it's an obvious difference. It's almost like a different show. The footage from Tugs would be used in another show called Salty's Lighthouse years later, but if you're a Tugs fan, we don't talk about Salty's Lighthouse. We just don't. Don't mention it, don't talk about it, unless you're trying to piss someone off. So what happened to the props? Well, like I said before, many went to be used on Thomas and Friends. But what about the main Tugs? The main cast, the main characters. Most of the props would be put in the David Mitton storage locker at Shepperton Studios and remained there until in 2008 when David Mitton sadly passed away. After this, the locker was cleared out, and for some reason, instead of preserving this piece of film history, as most humans do, they just threw it in the dumpster. All these props that cost $8,000 back in the 80s to make, which God knows how much it is nowadays, just throw it in the dumpster. No care for what it was, just in the dumpster it goes. Of course, throwing them in a dumpster caused them to take heavy damage. And the unfortunate thing is that this could have meant the models were gone forever, thrown into an incinerator and never seen again. If not for the act of a builder who saw the props and tried to get as many as he could into his van. He would eventually hand these over to someone who would restore them as best they could. Then on eBay, a listing appeared. A kit of model faces and pieces from Tugs that had been cleared out from the studio. Not long after, the person who was restoring the models put up pictures online and planned to sell the models. Getting in touch with the Solar Online forums and the people of the SIF, Solar Online forums, decided it would be better for the models to all be together instead of being sold in private collections and disappearing again forever, possibly never to be seen again and just sitting on someone's shelf. So banding together in 2013, they bought the models for around 8 to 11,000 pounds. Almost every Tugs model was there. Almost. Top Hat and Grampus were missing. And to this day, it is unknown where they are. Maybe they're owned in a private collection in the Mitton estate, or the worst case scenario, they could have been junked. Who knows? 4 months after the group launched under its official name, Star Tug Trust, it stated they wanted to restore the models to their former glory and preserve them for future generations. The group would host events where the models would be displayed for people to see. Now, I'm not going to get too opinionated on the Star Tug Trust. I don't really agree with some of the stuff they've done with the models like Unlucky Tug does, but I'm not going to make this a whole hour rant about it. The thing is, when the models were taken out to these early events, they were left out in the open, and people were openly allowed to touch the models, which obviously caused them more damage. These are old props, they've been sitting in storage for a long time, so, I mean, are you surprised? I do believe that the intentions of the Star Tug Trust are good. I mean, preserving these models for people to enjoy, for everyone to enjoy, is great. But just their, I think, decisions on how to display them for people to see might be a little, Like I said, I'm not going to go into it. Not my problem. It kind of is my problem, but you get what I mean. Many of the crew members that worked on Tugs would donate props, art, and VHS tapes. They are now Tugs the Expedition and still hold many of these props to this day. And that ends the incredible history of Tugs. This is a shortened down version of this. If you really want like a long, thought out version of this, go watch the Unlucky Tugs video. He just actually re-uploaded it by the time I'm recording this. So after all the history, the show made for kids only aired 13 episodes and was lost to time. My thoughts? I love this show. Simply because it's good. Like I said earlier, it's a breath of fresh air from what we've been fed in film recently. And it's hard to find shows of this detail. I know it kind of was the end of the show because they put this much detail into it, but I mean, Tugs has lasted throughout generations of fans because of the detail they put in, whether it was only 13 episodes or not. And I'm gonna be honest here, maybe it was for the better that Tugs ended when it did. I know it kind of didn't get the character development it might have gotten in the next couple of seasons, but I mean, look what happened to Thomas. What do you think would have happened if Tugs had been sold out to another company? And I'm assuming it would have probably ended the exact same way Thomas did, where it just kept getting dumber and dumber down for kids, to the point where the show is hardly recognizable to what it actually was. Pretty much what Salty's Lighthouse did to it. That's just my thought. Actually, if you agree with me on that, comment down below on the end of the video. But getting back on track, the attention to detail on the models and sets are beyond. I'm a sucker for models, like model sets. This is insane. There are so many things that nobody would have thought to have done. Nobody would have thought to have put in there, and they did it. Why? Because they could and they cared about what they were creating. And that gets you mad respect from me. Every shot in this show is worthy of being a painting or a wallpaper. I've seriously put pictures from this show on the wallpaper of my PC because they just are that beautiful. The lighting is also just insane. It's almost perfect. It makes it seem so realistic. The camera shots, the special effects, and the moods present in every episode is great. In the darker episodes, like Pirate and Ghost, which use darker themes, darker music, and good lighting, are great. I mean, they can rival some Thomas episodes that have that same theme, which is kind of weird to say because it's the same exact people making them. For a show that only managed 13 episodes and one single season out of it, they used so many different shots, effects, and every single one is so good. Even the weather, from dewy mornings, storms, snow, sunrise, heavy winds, it's hard for me to just sit here reading my script and describe how beautiful this show. Seriously, go watch the show. It's on YouTube. You will see for yourself how beautiful the show is. I'm pretty sure I have some shots for the in the background of the video. The music is also great. It's Mike and Junior. Of course it was going to be good, but I mean, it's pretty much on par with the Thomas songs. Though, I'm going to be honest, I kind of like the Thomas music better. I don't know why. It's basically kind of the same style of music, but I think maybe it's just because there's less recreations of it online to listen to that it's kind of hard to, listen to it all. But I mean, the Dockside Band music, the Munitions theme, and the Danger theme, they basically like Mike and Junior Cook. And the best piece of music possibly out of all of this is the title theme. The intro is probably one of my favorites. It is like just very close to beating that Doctor Who theme. That's how good this theme is. And for a small kids show in the 80s, it's just, they did not have to put this much effort into a theme at all. The saxophone does make it very 80s and maybe it's a little dated, but I still love it. I can still see it for how good it is. The piano piece in the background, so good. And then, of course, there's the controversy of the logging theme, which everyone says sounds like the Viaduct theme. According to some place I heard, they said that wasn't the case and it was completely a different theme, but you listen to it and it sounds... I don't know, I'm not gonna get into that. Like I said, not my problem. Good song, don't care. Good song, don't care what it came out of. The voice acting, though, again, for a kid show in the 80s, that was pretty much just a quick model series, the acting is incredible. Though, for some reason, I don't understand why they never put the credits for the voice acting in the outro. Since the show did air on TV, that's kind of weird that they never would have done that. Though Chris Tulloch, who did the voice of Zoran, does get credit, but it's because he's part of the crew. He's not he wasn't actually like the voice actor. He was brought in, I think, to do the remote control from the models, and he just ended up doing the voice acting. These guys, they don't feel like they're putting on a voice. They don't feel like they're faking it. They don't feel like they're putting on an accent. They feel like there's just a bunch of guys and people in a pub just joking around and having fun, and then somebody just happened to leave the recording on. It's just, I can't say enough how good this show is. And the dialogue, too, pretty much follows Brett Allcroft's ideology when they were doing Thomas. Don't dumb it down for children. Yes, don't make it too complicated for children, but you can still make a story that older people can enjoy while still having the themes of, lessons that children need. And it fits perfectly. And not a single episode seems below standard. It's all good. Every episode is good. I have some that are better than others, but it's by a slim margin. There's not a single episode out of all 13 that are bad. The characters, they don't feel like they don't get enough attention. They all feel like they have their moment. I know there were some that probably were going to get more in the second season, but for the first season and what they probably wanted to do, it felt perfect. And they don't ever feel out of character. They all feel pretty much like the people who walked in to do the voice acting were actually these people. That's just how good they were at keeping in character. Right. This is a moment that people might click off the video for. So, I watched the Usual Bloke Luke's review of Tugs. And at the very end, he asked the question, is Thomas better or worse than Tugs, or is Tugs better than Thomas? And originally, I thought he was mad, saying that it wasn't. But now that I'm thinking about it, and I've thought it through, I have to agree. Now hold up, don't shoot me first. Let me explain. The reason for this is because the one thing I could find wrong with this show, that is, it ended too soon. And that's not a problem of the production crew. That's simply, it just ended. And there's not much character development that we would have gotten in other seasons. In Thomas, you see Thomas go from a cheeky pest to almost as wise to give the bigger engine and older engines advice. That's the kind of character development that we probably would have gotten in future seasons of Tugs, but it just never came to be. And that's the main that's literally the only reason the only reason I say this Thomas is better than Tugs. It's a slim margin. The other reason is because of most of the cast members going from Tugs and back to Thomas, and taking most of the things that I loved about Tugs, like the set design, the production, and all that, with it back to Thomas. Most of the stuff that I love about Tugs, I can also say I love about Thomas. And Thomas just has that one thing of the character development that boosted above Tugs for me. But I will say, Tugs, in 13 episodes in a single season, did more than Thomas did in one season of 26 episodes of any season. Pick any seasons, especially even the golden years. If you're a fan of season 4 or 5 or 3, whatever, I say Tugs did more in one single season than Thomas did. Simply in it, I'm just rambling on. My script already ended. I'm just rambling on at this point. Tugs is an incredible show, and if you miss out on watching it, I feel bad for you. But the full series has been posted online, and thankfully, because it's not owned by Mattel, we actually get to enjoy it as a fan base. And we get to enjoy it for free. All the versions are online. I'm pretty sure the 15-minute cuts of the Munitions, Regatta, Sunshine, and Pirate are up too. I don't know. I watched the 20-minute versions because those are also uploaded. But seriously, as soon as this video ends, go watch the series. It doesn't take that long to do, and you will enjoy it, I promise. If you don't, you can tell me in the comments down below that I'm an idiot. I don't care. Seriously, I do not care. That pretty much is a wrap. That was pretty much all I wanted to talk about in this video. I know this video is probably going to be, Jesus Christ, 20 minutes long, which I'm surprised I fit this much in 20 minutes of recording. I'm going to make this a series where I'm going to go over every episode individually, because everyone's done a review of Tugs at this point. It's kind of been done 100 times. I wanted to go into each episode individually and give them their own video about them, to go into depth as much as I want, because I feel like if I put them all in one video, this video would not only be an hour long, but if it was an hour long, which I would have to keep it to be, then I would have to cut out pieces that I want to mention, which I don't want to do. I want to give these episodes as much time and effort as I can. Thank you all for your time. Again, like I said, go watch Tugs. It's online. Go look it up. Just watch it, please. If you want to see more videos like this, leave a comment down below and like. I really am open to opinions on who likes this kind of content, and I'm not really set to a specific kind. So if you like this video, let me know.